Welcome back to the channel for season 4 of 20 questions with.
Samuel Naldi.
All right, let's get into the questions. When I say fountain pen, what pen do you think of?
I think of a Sailor King of Pen because it's just the way how a Sailor King of Pen never lets you down. For me, it's the fountain pen that I can always trust. When I go for a vacation and I come back, doesn't matter if it was 1 week and then maybe I forget another week about it and I use other pens. I pick it up, I'll put the nib on paper, and it immediately writes. So when I think about a fountain pen, first pen I think of, it's a Sailor King of Pen.
All right, how did you get into fountain pens?
I kind of grew up into fountain pens because my parents were distributors for several brands in Switzerland. So for brands like Sailor, like Delta, Visconti, Marlene, Caveco, and so on. So yeah, I remember seeing Dolce Vitas when I was like 10-year old. And yeah, so I grew up into it. And then I went onto other world that are kind of related, like the watch industry. And then in 2010, I came back into pens and I never left this world again.
What was your first pen?
My first, that's a very good question. You know, the problem of being someone who grew up into it is that I was kind of surrounded by pens. I do remember one pen that I got on purpose, and it was a Delta Alfa Romeo in black, which
Okay.
had this Alfa Romeo logo on the cap. And that I remember was one of the first fountain pens that I got for myself.
What's your current daily driver?
It's Otto Hoot Design 08, and I have two more. One is the Sailor Romiyabi, King of Pen Romiyabi Norushi, and a Graf von Faber-Castell Pen of the Year Ancient Egypt, which I always keep next to my digital devices so I can always write down stuff by hand.
What's your favorite ink?
It's actually a Graf von Faber-Castell Garnet Red.
Okay.
And I'll mention two, three because it's always so difficult to. No, but the other one that I really love is the Pilot Hiroshizuku Shinryoku.
I believe somebody described me making them pick a favorite ink as having to pick a favorite child. It wasn't
Exactly.
quite fair. Um,
For me, it's even worse with pens because pens is like really, I love any kind of brand, any kind of pen, and every peculiarity of each single writing instrument really depends on the mood, on how I'm dressed, on what I have upcoming for the day in terms of business tasks or meetings. So yeah, I totally get that.
yeah, don't make me pick a favorite pen ever. What's your favorite brand of either pens or ink?
It's actually uh, in pens. Is probably Otto Hoot right now with the Design C Design 8 are my pens. And for inks, it's Palette Hiroshitsuku or Graf von Faber-Castell inks. Highly underrated, the Graf von Faber-Castell inks.
So underrated. I find like a lot of their lines, like even in the fine arts world, are underrated.
Yeah, it's a hell of a brand. I mean, even if you think about the coloring pencils that they do, they're of course they're not premium. I mean, they're premium priced for a coloring pencil. So I love that brands like Graf von Faber-Castell or Caran d'Ache also always create premium products, even if on very different price points, depending on what kind of products they're manufacturing. But they're always reaching for excellence in that thing that they're doing.
Exactly. Vintage or modern?
Modern.
Do you spot all your inks?
No, I don't.
Are there any pens that always get the same ink, or do you always switch it up?
So it's amazing you're asking me this because I'm currently using a Pelican Golden Barrel on my Sailor Iramiyabi. And I was just thinking today, I want to change the ink on my Sailor Iramiyabi. So normally I have to say that I use like the Garnet Red with my Design 08. I use a lapis lazuli graph from Faber-Castell ink with my pen of the year with the Ancient Egypt, and I'm using this Pelican. But I do love to change. But honestly, I don't change that often. So once I go for a certain color with a certain pen, then that's it for like 6 months, and then at some point I'm just like, oh, I need to refresh. It needs to be refreshed somehow.
Yeah, that's fair. But you run a pen for a long time with the same color. Like you don't, there are some people that change like every week.
No, exactly. That's definitely not what I'm doing.
Do you keep your writing samples so you know the nib in every pen, or do you just know how every pen writes?
No, I know how every pen writes, maybe also because of my professional background now. I do have a very good sense of what each single brand or nib type on each brand has to offer. And so I kind of, yeah, know exactly how it performs. And you know what's funny, Alexandra? I think what is really funny is depending on how a nib performs, I truly feel like I'm gonna reach for that pen because I need to do that. But it's not like it's subconsciously. It's not. I'm not doing it consciously. Okay, I need to write a lot. I'm gonna pick the Sailor King of Pen. I pick the Sailor King of Pen because I know the way it writes. I know that it's a bit lighter than a Design 08, so I just go for for the Sailor King of Pen. But as soon, for example, I know that I'm gonna hold the pen for a longer period of time in my hands and maybe talking at a meeting with other people, then I probably go for something a bit heavier, like a Design 08 or a pen of the year, for example. So it's subconsciously, I'm really not doing it on purpose, but it's about the feeling that I get from those instruments for the task that I'm going after.
100%. I have a billion things inked up at any given time because you have to have the pen to like fidget within your hand, and then you've got to have the good pens to like write notes with. And those are not always the same pen.
No, 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 no. That's why we have so many pens, right?
What's a pen you wish you could see in person?
Oh, people who are just listening to this are gonna think, well, what is happening? Did I pause by mistake? Because I'm being quiet so long. No, I'll tell you something, Alexandra. Uh, I've had the chance, thanks to the collectors talks that I've been doing on my channels. Honestly, like the talk that is coming out now this week, I've probably seen four of my last Grail pens that I wanted to see. And even if I, tap into the ultra rare ones like Dunhill Namikis, even vintage Dunhill Namikis, I've had really the chance to hold them in my hands. So it might sound a bit arrogant, but given my professional background and the chance that I have to meet people like yourself, for example, people who collect, who love this wonderful craft and the beauty of handwriting, I really have to say that I had the chance to have so many incredible writing instruments in my hand. There's not a piece that comes to my mind that I say like, oh, I would love. Actually, no. While I'm talking, there is one. You see, the Mont Blanc Taj Mahal, the black white diamond. That truly is one that I've never seen live, and I'd like to see. You see, there's always a pen that we need to
Always
to
pen.
discover.
And that's the thing I find. I've had a lot of brand reps on the show who do the same spiel as you, and then about halfway through their spiel, they go, "Oh, actually?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You see, I
The
did it
lo-
on purpose. I know it's gonna come up at some point.
like the longer you think about it, the more you go, there is actually that one thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's exact. And you know what's funny? I think a post about it today on Penn Statement, and that's when I said, "Oh wow, I wish I could see this pen live." So yeah.
What's your current grail?
My current Grail is a which I own or which I wish to own.
Either.
One that I wish to own, actually two. I'm looking for a Namiki goldfish, emperor goldfish, and the Namiki rakucho birds and cherry blossoms. Which, the problem again with my profession is you always have those pens somewhere around, but you don't own them as a personal person, right? So it's funny.
What pen would you recommend to a beginner?
I would recommend a sailor, and I'm someone who recommends to buy less but buy better products. I'm very fond of this concept. So of course it always depends on the budget, but I often say if you know you want to get into fountain pens, then consider going for something that you're gonna cherish for the next 5 to 10 to forever years, right? So I would probably recommend a sailor. I would probably say if you can afford it, if you want to afford it, go for a Sailor King of Pen. If he truly wants to go for something special, then I would say even go for a Design 08. These are for me right now. If people that follow my content know how fond I am of this writing instrument and the reasons why. There is on one side the writing experience that you get. On the other side, there's also the manufacturing part and the romantic part and the design part that plays a big role into those products that I personally recommend.
100%. What ink would you recommend to a beginner?
Probably a Palette Roshitsuku. I always, when they ask me what ink should I go for, Palette Roshitsuku or Sailor Manyo inks.
Yeah,
Great one, right?
love Stuff Man. Yeah, I've got
Yeah. I see a few there, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I've got three up there, and I've got a couple other on order. Just
Wonderful.
so great. What advice do you have for somebody wanting to try out fountain pens who might be a bit intimidated by them?
Oh, just go for it. Once you start, you'll never be able to do without this. So, of course, if they're intimidated about trying it, there's no need to be intimidated. Just go for it. If they're intimidated to actually purchase one, then of course I tell them start with a Lamy Safari, and from there you start having the first feelings, and from there you can step up your game if you want to step up your game. But in general, it's just like people are afraid I don't have a nice handwriting that doesn't exist. All handwritings are very special, very unique, very personal, and that makes it beautiful. And on the other end, they're afraid about am I even able? Of course, you're able to write with a fountain pen. All of us are. Kids are. Yesterday, I had a 6-year-old kid in my store, and his grandfather really wanted to buy her a special pen that she's gonna keep forever. And she was there, and she was writing so wonderful. 6-year-old, so they're not into that much writing yet, but she was doing that so nicely, so graciously. So it really shows that fountain pens are absolutely for everyone.
Yeah. What filling mechanism do you think is most interesting, regardless of if you actually like to use it or not?
Piston, always piston. But I do think that eyedroppers are quite interesting, and I'm not a eyedropper user, but it's cool. It's kind of fun. It's unique, but piston filling mechanism. If you ask me specifically, then a pull and twist filling mechanism built on a design C or a design 08. I love the mechanism of unclicking the mechanism and then pulling it out, putting it at position number two, and then starting to fill it up. It's a very, it's a nice momentum. It's something nice to do throughout the day.
Right. I don't think any of my piston pens have that mechanism. If I'm-
It, it, it's actually a mechanism that is only that was engineered by Autohut for
Okay.
their Design C and the Design 08
Right.
models. So you're only going to find it on a Design 08 or a Design C.
Well, I guess I have to add one of their pens to my collection this year.
Oh, you won't regret it.
My little rat brain would enjoy playing with that mechanism. Uh, what nib size do you prefer to write with?
Fine currently, fine or medium.
Okay.
But the more the time passes, the more I'm into fine. And I noticed it's funny, people usually start with broad nibs because they feel so smooth and they look so generous when you're writing. But then the more the time passes and the more you write, the more you tend to go down to a fine medium. It's exactly what happened to me. The first pens I was buying were all like in broad nibs. But once you start actually writing and being serious about writing, yeah, you'll go all the way down, right?
Yep. Is there a style of nib you love or find interesting but would never actually use?
I find oblique nibs interesting, and I find that the Naginata Togi nib very interesting. It's not a nib that I would personally use or own because at the current stage of how I use my pens, it's not something interested. But that does change all the time, and every time I think this is not for me, a week later, there is a collector coming and saying, "Oh, look at this! I use it like that. I use it like this next to my nose." And I'm like, "Yeah, so inspiring. Let me get an oblique." So it's
I
probably what's going to happen now.
said the same thing about Sailor. I said the same thing about Zoom nibs in general, and then I picked up a Sailor Zoom nib and I went, well, I guess I like Zoom nibs now.
You see, yeah, Zoom nibs are incredible, incredible.
Do you always use the same paper? If so, what paper? If not, what paper's your favorite?
So I use a notepad that a lot that we have manufactured for Style of Zug, which is a blank notepad that I always have next to my MacBook, where I can just jot down ideas and thoughts without having to be too specific or too nice. And then I usually use a Smythson notebook for putting down all my quotes from books that I read. So I use that specifically and I write nicely, very precise. And then I have a Montblanc notebook, which I use more as a daily brainstorming and project kind of notebook. These are the one, two, three kind of notebooks and papers that I use. But I have to be very honest. I think Hanemühle notebooks have some of the best paper that you can get. Very underrated, very not well known currently, but everyone who knows paper has always appreciated Hanemühle notebooks a lot. So that's going to be one of the next ones that I'm going to buy for myself with a nice leather cover because I think that the aesthetics and the feeling of the materials are always equally important.
100%. I've used their watercolor paper over the years, but I've
Yeah.
never used their fountain pen paper.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
you'll see.
I think it's harder to get here because their watercolor paper isn't easy to get here. So,
No, the notebooks are probably not very well distributed in the US, I guess,
yeah.
unfortunately, but they're very, very nice.
What is your least favorite ink or ink color family?
Um, Gray. I mean, in terms of color, I don't like gray because I find gray always to look like a watery black. I do have a lot of people, know a lot of people who love gray. For me, gray looks too light and not very powerful. So that's a color that I wouldn't use. In terms of like company or brand, honestly, uh, I have to admit, I am very familiar with the brands that we carry in our boutiques, that because that's where we do all the research. And of all those, there's not one that I wouldn't suggest. They're all extremely well made, from Caran d'Ache to Mont Blanc to Sailor to Scribble. So very, very, very good quality inks.
All right. Well, thanks for playing 20 questions.
Oh, we're over. Fantastic. My pleasure, Alexandra. Thank you so much for having me on your marvelous channel. And I love this series that you're doing. Very, very precious for our industry and for passionate people of fine writing instruments.
Thank you so much.